But we have an expert on the line now. It's our good pal. I don't know if we use pseudonyms or not, but it's our good pal, Dr. K. How are you?
Hi there. Hi. I'm great.
Thanks for calling in. So, you've been watching the trial and saw the experts. Love to know your. And by the way, just so the folks remember, the last we spoke was when we were disproving the fake ovary cancer, which was later confirmed by an expert to be fake documents. But you were all over that.
Oh my gosh, yes, that was funny. Yeah, to remind everyone, I'm a pathologist. I'm an MD who diagnoses from tissues and whatnot, but had to go to med school like everybody else, and definitely have some thoughts on the new things we learned on the trial.
Yeah. So tell me, I guess, I mean, I hate to ask which doctor you found more credible. I'm sure as doctors, you like to believe all, that you've all got credibility with, your own expertise. But what did you think between hearing his expert and hers?
Oh my gosh. Well, so her expert was about how I expected him to be based on his expert documents, and he didn't disappoint. And by that, what I mean is he, every person in medicine who's rotated through OB-GYN knows a guy like this. He's impressed with his own. I thought it was funny that he had these adages. He was like, "You're either pregnant or you're not." First of all, that's not really an adage. It was sort of overly simplistic, and I think he got away with impressing medical students a lot by just saying things like that aren't even very impressive. But
yeah, we would call that like a blowhard. He probably is one of those guys that really enjoys his own voice.
Yes, exactly. So more or less, he didn't seem very credible. I mean, my snark aside, he didn't seem very credible, mainly for the reasons Woodnick's team fished out, which is that there was so much of her history that he didn't review. And, one thing I've been thinking that I've really wanted to talk to you about is some contradictory things that came up in his testimony. So I'll lay it out here. On October 6th, I believe that's when Laura Owens first had her first DNA test come back as little to no fetal DNA, I believe, right?
Yes.
So that would indicate that there's no more placental tissue or no more fetal tissue in her body. I mean, I'm assuming if they're going with this miscarriage story, right?
Yes.
But she still had an HCG of 102, which...
Oh, I lost you. It looks like we just got you on mute somehow.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yep. I lost you on the 102 level HCG.
Okay. So her HCG was 102, which her expert was saying just made sense to him that she had had a miscarriage, and okay, she still has a little bit of the tissue left, and that's why she has such a low HCG level. And then, but goes on to say that the fetal DNA test is so accurate and whatnot. And the HCG levels were taken October 16th. Fetal DNA was October 6th and was negative. So I just wanted to point out that that's contradictory, that if there was any fetal tissue left, the circulating fetal DNA would absolutely still be there.
And it can last for even up to years after a pregnancy, no?
Yeah, it can actually last up to decades. That's unusual.
And this is new science, right? That they're finding out that the mother's DNA actually isn't just hers anymore. It's intertwined with the baby's. Is that right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's if you've ever heard of the mythological creature of the chimera, it's a word that's also used in medicine so chimeras, I think, have multiple parts of an animal in mythology. And that's what also the word we use in medicine when there are two DNAs or different DNA profiles in the same body. In a sense, it's kind of a fun term, but yeah, essentially a mom is a little bit of a chimera after she has children, because it's thought that the fetal DNA never fully leaves the body. But yeah, I mean, back to the expert, I don't know. I don't think he did a good job. I think you've broken that down already pretty well. He seemed biased. He seemed very silly in relying on the lab result. He kept saying, "Oh, well, the lab result was positive, therefore she's pregnant."
Yeah, and you know what I loved is that Woodnick, as he cross-examined him, Dr. Medchill, brought up science and said, you're a scientist, and with science,
Yes.
you're always trying to disprove a theory. That the only way to prove something's true is by trying to prove that it's not true. And with the Dr. Medchill, he didn't seek out any of the ultrasounds from Planned Parenthood. He didn't try to seek out any information as an expert that would prove her wrong. He just went with the one piece of evidence, which is so slimy.
Exactly.
So
exactly. He was using these argument. Yeah, it's sort of like when you're debating someone and the way that they're debating you is just sort of with these unfair arguments that don't really but I don't know, it didn't really make any sense. And like another example of that is he was talking about how he's treated thousands of women who didn't seek prenatal care. And so it didn't surprise him that Laura didn't. That is just such a misleading and kind of slimy argument to use, because the women who don't seek prenatal care, they're women who generally aren't of privilege.
Right.
It was weird. It was almost like he was sort of capitalizing on a sad thing of some women not being able to have access or just the education to access prenatal care. And then he was sort of equating that to what Laura did. And that's just really a false equivalency and just not really a thing. Someone like Laura, as you've said countless times, someone like Laura would have access to the Cadillac of care and certainly wouldn't be not, getting care for her twins.
Yeah, and that's why I loved the witness from Clayton's side, which I believe Dr. Deans and them were watching my channel. I'm sure watching a lot of others as we began this curious story here, and then became the expert witness. And it seems like they were more interested in finding out why there wasn't a pattern. Like, if you don't know what someone's HCG level was 3 months ago, how can you properly say that 102 isn't their baseline level based on other, so many different factors that exist there? So it just seemed like they operated in such a, and they operated in such a better faith. Like, they were there just to say, no, this doesn't prove anything.
Yeah. And then also just a couple of things you've mentioned. I also was wondering why they didn't ask her about what her fake name was. I'm assuming it's because they can't follow up either way. I mean, the trial's done, the discovery's done and everything. So even if they got a name, it would really just feed into our frenzy of trying to figure out, more, but it would be not satisfying because we wouldn't be able to even look into that.
Yeah, and
records anyway.
And the world that Jane Doe lives in seems to be, well, I thought it was above a level 4, so I thought, like, she just seems to think, well, I can get away with saying I'm pregnant because my levels are above 4, when we don't know what she's doing to make those levels that way. But yeah, I mean, it's like that loophole life she and her lawyer seem to be living in, where her lawyer says, I'll leave if she's lying. And then he goes, well, those lies don't matter. And when it comes to their excuse for not using her Planned Parenthood ultrasound, it's because we don't know that that's objectionable evidence. The only real true evidence we have is the 102. And the fact that he's willing to dismiss the evidence because she faked it versus the judge, who's probably going, well, I think that the faked evidence is just as important. And, her excuse, I only sent those to some content creators. I never submitted those to the court. It's just so aggressively dishonest.
It is very dishonest. And, I agree with you too. I think you mentioned this in one of your recent videos. My going theory, though I don't know how she got the HCG in her system, obviously, I do feel she probably injected it. I think she has access to it. it's really, it sounds far-fetched that someone would go, inject a chemical, but it would actually be pretty simple.
Now, because she did mention having fertility sponsors on her podcast in the past, do you think it was, what would be easier, a human version or going into because I've had the hypothesis that you can get a sort of like a horse, vet dosage. Is that dangerous?
So I have looked into this since our last talk because you had asked me if horse HCG is the same, and more or less it is actually the same. There are different sort of forms of HCG, and a horse HCG test actually, from what I researched, would trip a human one. I think based on what she has access to, I think actually horse HCG probably would be easiest, quote unquote, because I don't know. She knows that whole world, clearly, has access to pharmaceuticals and whatnot in the horse world. But I don't think getting it from a human doctor would be that much harder.
Yeah, and I guess the case is too, if Woodnick doesn't know who to subpoena, then the information's just living somewhere, right? Like it's just like some doctors got this information.
Yes. And also, fertility medications are very expensive. So there are a lot of actually well-meaning groups online that where women will get together with leftover medications and either donate or sell their meds, even though it's technically illegal. It's a thing for struggling moms with fertility to have trouble affording them. So it's actually, there are plenty of sort of black markets that aren't really bad. They're actually good in a lot of ways, though they're a little risky because you don't technically know exactly where the med came from. But what I'm trying to say is you can actually buy these meds online. There are networks of women that work together to spread it out and share it. And I have no doubt she'd find a way to just get her hands on the HCG. I mean,
plus she could just drive to Mexico, right? I mean, don't they use HCG for weight loss? Like, couldn't you get that over the counter possibly?
Yes, absolutely. She could totally drive to Mexico.
I mean, from Mission Viejo, she's probably an hour away. She's, she's right around the corner if she wanted to go.
I can't believe I didn't consider that because, I was in Mexico recently, and you can buy pretty much everything over the counter.
Oh, everyone I know. Yeah, you're living in LA. You're going down to Mexico. Get the extra pain meds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also, as for anonymity at Planned Parenthood, she tried to say there's a fake name. Planned Parenthood, obviously, they don't do pseudonyms and whatnot. They have already clarified that. Her expert, I thought, was great. I wish there was more time to use her. I thought the expert was just had her pulse or her finger on the pulse a lot more, seemed a lot more credible, a lot less ego-driven, seemed data-based and fact-based more than anything. And, in LA, sure, some hospitals allow celebrities to use pseudonyms, but that practice is actually a lot less common than people think. Most celebrities don't even use pseudonyms. And also, Planned Parenthood has made clear that they don't do that. And also, even if they did, they still have record of your actual name.
Oh, so yeah. This medical malpractice issues that would exist if you don't know who you're treating. Yeah.
Exactly. Test results
but yeah, I agree with you that if more time was available, we could have gotten way more information from the doctors with regards to how ridiculous that is. And now it actually seemed that Dr. Medchill was giving more validity to Ravgen when he was cross-examined. Any thoughts on that? And any thoughts on why that wasn't made into a bigger deal? I couldn't believe. And I don't know if it's because Ravgen was dodging the subpoena to actually show the records, but I just could not believe that wasn't the case closed science that was needed here.
Yeah, that was a fun oopsie, I think, on the part of Medchill.
Because I thought they were going to say, oh, it's new technology, it's unreliable. But Medchill was like, no, this is it. This is good technology. I was surprised.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Ravgen didn't follow through with the subpoena. I don't know why not. And I'm guessing that is why they didn't hammer home the fetal DNA test a bit more on Clayton's side. I'm guessing just because they but also I think that it just it's already admitted into evidence, I'm guessing, and it just speaks for itself when the judge will look at it later. But yeah, Mitchell did inadvertently help Clayton's side with that by basically saying that it does confirm or deny pregnancy more or less. And I don't think that's what their side wanted him to say.
Yeah, I almost wonder if Medchill wasn't aware. I mean, he's retired, he's taking the money. He's,
right.
If I wonder if he's watching this trial play out and he sees the fabrication of evidence before his testimony. Now, I don't think he was going to change his mind. I think he was going to do what he had already, what he had already made in his report, which is say that she was 99.99% pregnant. But I have to tell you, she already, in contacting Tilted Lawyer to try to bash me, she already was using that as her excuse. Like, when she sues me in the future, she's going to say, an expert doctor said I was pregnant. And then when you actually crack into the fact that he never examined her, then you just get to see, man, these experts, like, there's a reason he's retired and took this. No, like working, practicing doctor would have stood by that. I imagine.
Absolutely. I have friends that testify as experts sometimes, and he does not have an active license anymore. And, because he's retired, he has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose with this. I mean, this is good money the doctors can make, but I will say, most doctors are very ethical, and even when they retire are not going to, act like this guy. But yeah, unfortunately, there are plenty. You can find a doctor to endorse anything, and I don't love that. It gives doctors a bad name. Doctors endorse shady things all the time that aren't great, and yeah.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on a conclusion? What do you think the judge is going to say? Any idea?
I think the judge was very observant and smart, and sees what's going on. And I think I would be very, very surprised if she doesn't rule in Clayton's favor. Another thing I wanted to say, actually, that how Laura was saying that she does not get periods?
Yes.
Well, and just a little trigger warning, I'm going to talk about weight loss and whatnot a bit, but Laura didn't say why she wasn't getting periods, but looking at how thin she is, it's possible that it's related to her body actually not even being able to support periods. Once you're sort of underweight enough, your body will stop ovulating because it can't support growing a pregnancy.
I said the same thing. You're under duress. You're trying to, just have homeostasis, and the body can't. If the body doesn't think it can support pregnancy, it's not. Yeah, like you said, it's not going to ovulate. And when we look at how big she was or small she was with Greg Gillespie in 2021, she was he had a video of her approaching her door. She was tiny. She was for sure under 100 pounds then. So I don't know. I mean, maybe she did gain a little weight when she was living this pregnancy cosplay story, but I was confused as to why they brought weight into this.
That was so, oh my gosh, that was so uncomfortable for her to spin around. Oh, that was so weird. I think, man, the judge must have just, I don't know, just died a little inside.
And I believe that was probably at her direction, because it was very similar to the other hearing where she wanted to show Clayton her belly. It's and which I wish the judge would have let that happen, but it's very bizarre how she's maybe fixated on using her body as evidence here, because it's like, I don't know what it's supposed to prove. It maybe, like if she was to say, I lost a lot of weight because I'm manic, and I'm, she's already said she's manic and checking Reddit nonstop. Like, yeah, I get it. No one's surprised. It's like when she says she goes to a neurological institute because she had brain damage. Everyone's like, yeah, we get it. Nobody's questioning that.
Exactly. And, and for whatever reason, a woman's not getting periods, whether it's weight or polycystic ovarian syndrome or something else, that just makes it harder in general to get pregnant. So I think it's a little interesting that, she was mentioning she doesn't get periods, and I don't know. I think Judge Matta is going to sniff out. I think Judge Matta has 100% seen what's happened here. I think it will just depend on what she's able to do, and she wants to make it an airtight judgment and make sure that on appeal that she's really done her due diligence. But I think this went very well for Clayton, and I feel for him. My heart goes out to him and all of the victims, and I hope we continue to see additional justice for them, because this is just a wild situation.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to cover it in a way that might give them some of that justice, whether it be having their restraining orders turned around and putting some pressure on the county prosecutors. So don't take my word for it, but the comment section says you're fantastic and should be our resident expert, which, by the way, you already are. Just don't send me a bill. Yeah, please. I mean, you got my number. Like, text me anytime you have any updates. I'll probably clip this together and make a separate video so people can hear this conversation. And anything we didn't discuss here that you wanted to note from the trial?
I think most of my thoughts have come out. Do you have any more medical thoughts or questions?
I won't remember till I get off the phone with you, but I'll make sure if I can think of anything to let you know. But thanks again for calling in and giving us your expertise. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye. Okay, that was Dr. K, our resident expert and pathologist. Isn't this fantastic? Don't we have a fantastic community here? So Dr. K, very well aware of what's going on here, mentions the fact that Jane Doe probably doesn't even have the weight to support a normal period, let alone PCOS can cause infertility, all these other issues. Dr. K says she probably injected HCG, even though in the court case they argued that she didn't, but that just means they never found it. And it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. I mean, you can't subpoena every doctor, within a 10-hour radius. She could have been going to San Francisco. She could have had a boutique doctor. A million different scenarios could have existed. I would almost sound crazy to discuss all of these scenarios, but what we know is this pattern that exists, and I think it's fair to say that the pattern exists because these nefarious activities occurred. We don't have a smoking gun as far as a HCG shot coming out of her ass. We don't have that whole plunging of the syringe into the buttocks happening here. But as far as vet supplies or these other things, I mean, it's not like she doesn't know her way around a vet clinic. I'm sure she's rehabbing horses. Of course, they're on medicines. I mean, that was her livelihood, is flipping horses, as it were.